Hi, I'm Kelly and I'm an Agile coach here at N Digital. My coaching role means that I support our Agile teams in a variety of ways. I facilitate Agile events, team kickoffs, and I shadow other people facilitating Agile team events as well. I run sessions on team culture and ways of working and offer upskilling and one-to-one coaching and mentoring too. I work with both teams and leadership to help create the conditions and environment needed for Agile teams and Agile organizations to thrive in. One of the key elements of a successful Agile team and organization is psychological safety, and it's something that I and Anders company feel very passionate about. I recently put together an essentials guide on psychological safety to aid internal learning here at and with the help of a fantastic illustrator, Stella,
we're going to talk you through how psychological safety can be broken down and how its presence and absence can significantly impact an Agile team.
Let's go. In a nutshell, psychological safety is when you feel a sense of security to be able to bring your full self to the table. Share your ideas, viewpoints, and concerns without being judged or criticized. Crucially, in a workplace, you can also make mistakes and learn from them without worrying about having to cover them up or be punished for those mistakes. One of the key elements I mentioned there is feeling safe to offer diverse perspectives. And that's often the way we kick off learning about psychological safety and what it is. So we ask teams to create a word cloud of what they think psychological safety is and what it means to them and how they might observe in teams how much psychological safety a team has or doesn't have. Here's some past examples of these. The terminology may be very new to some, and so although it's easy to throw out some buzzwords, it's actually more productive to explain through examples. A picture paints 1,000 words. So today we have Stella's illustration that sums up our thoughts on psychological safety.
So this is the illustration I came up with. When your team's psychological safety level is high, people are honest and feel like they can trust each other and be vulnerable. They feel empowered to pitch in, feeling happy, valued, and motivated. Your team is more open to experiment and feedback is common. Different opinions are valued and everyone has a voice. As a result, your team will work more effective, self-organized, and agile.
Identifying things you're already doing well is great, and yet it's also good to acknowledge where psychological safety may be a little bit lower and focus on working through some of these areas.
When the team's psychological safety level is low, your team member will be scared of being blamed, therefore tend to avoid communications and run away from conflict or debates. In the meantime, they might have a fear of getting caught out and pay a penalty, therefore not embracing failure gracefully, and they may feel like they have to hide their mistakes and any weakness they have. These can lead to your team members' self-doubt, less likely to take risks, and do not care much for others and the overall goal. Also, fear of not completing on time or meeting expectations. Low psychological safety work environments have an impact on your team morale and work delivered. Your team will have demotivated members. People tend to finish their own work and avoid helping each other. One person dominates the whole project. As a result, your team might not deliver on time, hiding issues in work, individuals not developing, hence impacting their creativity.
It's important to remember that psychological safety is on a spectrum. It's not an all or nothing feeling. We can break down the concept into its component parts to help teams better understand what to work on improving and what to protect and preserve. They'll often have lower levels of psychological safety in one area and higher levels in other areas. And that's why this next exercise is so useful. From my research and experience with teams, I've come to break down psychological safety into 5 core elements. We then conduct an anonymous poll to understand how safe they feel in each of these 5 areas. and this surfaces insight into which areas are working well and which need a little bit more focus. Here's a real life example. As this real life example shows, it's useful to break down the idea, because if the team only interpreted psychological safety through the lens of being able to ask for help without worrying or being judged, then they'd have said they have very high psychological safety. And yet, if you framed it only through the lens of how much they feel they can experiment and take risks without worrying about getting into trouble if it goes wrong, then they'd have a much lower score with lots of room for improvement.
Here is one more example where you see the difference between the team's comfort to ask for help versus their comfort to admit mistakes, demonstrate vulnerability, or experiment.
I asked the team if anyone's willing to share their reflections on the poll results first up and discuss some of the reasons why they scored higher or lower in some of the areas. I asked them to consider what the impacts to them as a team are, with that element being higher or the other element being lower. And if it feels important to them to improve that element, then we start to brainstorm what small things they can do to either improve the level of the element or continue to protect it. Here's a real example of what one team committed to doing after they noticed that their score was a bit lower than they hoped for on being able to challenge, question, offer opinions, and raise concerns productively.
We'd love to give you a real flavor of this poll in action, so we're inviting you to participate in it right now. The link in the poll is in the description below. It's anonymous. We'd like to know how psychologically safe you feel in your current team.
Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to exchange ideas or learn more on this topic, we'd love to hear from you. Details will be in the description box below. Until next time.